I wrote that now 30 years ago. And some of you here weren't born 30 years ago. A number of you here weren't born 30 years ago. So it just shows nothing is too new. We're still getting some original material on heart rate variability. And my PhD students working in this area think it's all very new. But it's not. It's 30 years old at least when some of this work was originally published. And some of the things we've been doing, if we start to combine the effects of heart rate variability, I've been talking about cardiac power output, which I mentioned briefly, or we discussed in more detail this afternoon, and also heart rate recovery, the recovery of heart rate following a bout of exercise. In the past, we've been looking at these in healthy subjects at rest. We've been looking at healthy subjects during exercise, particularly steady state exercise. We've been looking at patients with peripheral vascular disease at rest. And we've been looking at patients who had a heart attack, post-MI patients, during incremental exercise. And finally, we've been looking at in the past, we've looked at post-MI patients during cardiac rehabilitation. So there's a history within our cardiovascular research group of looking at these specific measures over a period of time with different types of activities, with different types of research groups. Moving on then to today, the current applications of the same three measures, heart rate variability, cardiac power output, and heart rate recovery, we have been looking at patients who have a left ventricular assist device, both implanted and also when the left ventricular device has been taken out. Here is what I mean by left ventricular assist device. Basically, it's a pump, and what this pump does, it takes the load off the left ventricle. This is very exciting because the original idea of taking the load off the left ventricle using this pump, and the pump is external to the body, and the tubes that you see there simply go into the, say simply, it's not obviously that simple, but it goes into the body and links up with the heart in this way. The original idea of using this left ventricular assist device was to give a period of time to try and support the heart between the time that people present themselves with very serious heart disease. These are people who are in end-stage heart disease, very near to death. And to find a way of just giving a little bit of time so they can wait for an appropriate heart transplantation to take place. But what was fascinating was that when these things were installed, it was found over a period of relatively short period of time, months, up to a year, that in fact the left ventricle started to restore, it started to improve, often to the extent that it was possible to take out the pump and allow people to continue normal lives and not have the necessity subsequently to have a heart transplant later. So it really has proved to be more than a lifesaver, this particular approach, and has been very successful in not only helping to delay the requirement for heart transplantation, but to avoid the necessity for heart transplantation. So that's very exciting. We're working with patients who have installed this left ventricular assist device when they've had it taken out, which is the explanted part there, and also got this internally. And this research, our current research group, who are using these measures, are using it with that particular group. We're also using it with chronic heart failure patients who do not have the left ventricular assist device in place. So we're looking at that as a group. We're looking at healthy age-matched controls, and we're looking at heart failure patients who are undergoing cardiac rehabilitation. Now you'll notice that throughout this presentation I'm not spending much time giving you detailed references and detailed outcomes. And the reason for that, I feel, is for a presentation of this sort, it's better for you to get a bit of a general understanding about what we're trying to do and the sort of areas we're interested in. And then if any of you are really interested in some aspect of this, you can come back to me and I can send you the references. I can give you much more detail about the outcomes of these particular measurements. So feel free to contact myself or Georgia, and we will give you that information should you require it. So I'm sure you're wondering at what point I'm going to start to talk about the topic of my presentation, namely exercise, the best medicine in the world. Well, now's the time. I'm going to start talking about this. You're going to find the next few slides are very similar in content to our previous speaker before the coffee break. Now, you may say, well, I don't want to hear that all again. I've heard it once. But I can assure you that it's a very sound educational principle to repeat things. And so I'm very happy to repeat what you've heard earlier. But more important than that, you've heard the previous speaker talk about this aspect of being an insurance salesman. And our job, all of us here as professional people involved in either physical education or recreation or sports science or any aspect of physical activity, we really do have a very important job in terms of selling this particular product. I can't endorse more strongly what you heard before the coffee break. And we have an expression in English, it's called preaching to the converted. And interestingly enough, I believe all of you sitting here are already converted. But it's quite clear that you haven't taken on the message very strongly, because you had the opportunity to raise your hand, those of you who are actually taking part in physical activity a minimum of 5 times per week. And very few of you put your hand up, which means you're either very lazy, you can't be bothered to raise your hand, or it means that you're not engaging in physical activity at the level which is desirable. And this is a big issue. But we do have a serious selling job. We've got to find new ways, I would suggest, new ways of selling this product. We've got to find ways where we can motivate people differently to do things. And I have to say, one of the things that worries me personally about figures that you've heard already about the number of times and the intensity of physical activity which is required on a weekly basis, is that even with the most committed people, and there's no one more committed in exercise than me, I try my best to do the 5 times a week times half an hour moderate exercise or whatever. But even someone like me who tries my best to do it finds often it's very difficult. Work, that 4-letter word, seems to get in the way of wanting to do the exercise at the level we've been talking about. So we've got a serious problem here. And you, I hope, will take on board some of these messages. You will use these messages when it's appropriate. The messages I'm about to give you, which you've heard before, you shouldn't just hit me with all the facts at once. But it may be you just pick up the odd one and slip that into the conversation, or the way you're trying to introduce the need and the benefits of physical activity. So let's go through some of these again. Now, you've seen this list before. I don't need to read through it again because it's there on the board. But being active daily can help all those things that you've heard mentioned before. Now, that particular list there came from a booklet which was promoting those sort of things, published by the government. Very small proportion of people are clearly utilising it, otherwise the obesity levels in the Western world would not be going up to the extent they were. But there are a number of benefits of exercise, and in terms of cancer, as we heard earlier, certain types of cancer can be reduced dramatically as a result of exercise. And that particular information was taken from a piece of material produced by the Cancer Research UK, people who are concerned generally with cancer, so it's solid evidence. It's not something that I've dreamed up or someone is saying this is a good idea. It's very solid evidence. And within that document it says taking regular exercise combined with a balanced diet is the best way of maintaining a healthy body weight This will reduce the risk of cancer of the bowel and probably of the breast, prostate, womb and other cancers too. And apart from heart disease, cancer is a major killer in the Western world. So you probably all know someone who suffered from these sorts of cancers. And if we can indicate that regular exercise can be beneficial, then we should be doing so. Secondly, diabetes. There's plenty of evidence showing improved sensitivity of muscles to insulin. It reduces the risk of development in middle age, and this can be seen very clearly in this slide here. Once again, I haven't just made this up. If you look at the reference here, it's the New England Journal of Medicine, which is the top medical journal in the world, and you can see that as you get older, the benefits of diet and exercise in terms of reducing type 2 diabetes is greater. So it's even more important, as you heard earlier, that you encourage older people to exercise on a regular basis. Hypertension, once again, there's evidence to show a reduction in blood pressure as a result of exercise. I won't spend long on this because I realise you've heard much of it before. Coronary artery disease, the risk is halved, increased in the high-density lipid levels of cholesterol. Arthritis, for people suffering from arthritis, there's plenty of evidence that improved levels of mobility are increased. Obesity, we've talked about, the benefits of exercise for obesity. We have a television programme on at the moment which goes out once a week, and it's called Strictly Dancing, and it's a competition. People come on this television programme, and it's a sort of a celebrity, so-called celebrity, comes on the television programme, and they're teamed up with a professional dancer, someone who already knows how to dance, and they go through every week, they show their dances, and every week one person is thrown off the programme. There's a vote and they're thrown off the programme. I'm sure you have a similar thing here, right? Well, one of the people recently interviewed who was thrown off the programme said, well, I don't mind the fact that I'm no longer on the programme because I've gone down 2 dress sizes. What a big surprise. She's just been exercising for about 6 hours a day, doing her dance, and she comes up with this amazing